Hey guys, this is Smiles, and I'll be continuing the next chapter to Midnight for Charlie Bone by Jenny Nimmo. And I hope you guys enjoy. Thanks for listening. The U Beam Aunts. It was difficult to keep up with Uncle Peyton. He swept through wind and rain as if he wore 7 league boots. I've never seen your uncle outside in the daytime, Charlie Benjamin panted. He's a bit funny, isn't he? A bit, agreed Charlie, who was rather in awe of his peculiar uncle. He put on a spurt as Uncle Peyton had already arrived at the steps of number 9. Benjamin fell behind. Something's up with your family, he called to Charlie. I hope you can still come to my birthday. Nothing can stop me, said Charlie, reaching his uncle. No dogs, said Uncle Peyton, as Benjamin and Runner Bean came leaping up to them. Aw, please, said Benjamin. Not today. This is family business, Peyton said sternly. Go home. Okay. Bye then, Charlie. Benjamin trailed away, followed by Runner Bean, his ears and tail well down, a real hangdog. Uncle Peyton ushered Charlie into the kitchen and then disappeared upstairs. Charlie found his mother and 2 grandmothers sitting at the kitchen table. Macy looked very put out, but a secret smile played on Grandma Bone's thin lips. Charlie's mother was nervously stirring a cup of tea. Charlie couldn't imagine why. His mother didn't take sugar. Sit down, Charlie, said Grandma Bone, as if she were about to put on a show entirely for his benefit. Don't let the U-beams get to you, Macy whispered. She took Charlie's hand and patted it. What's going on? Said Charlie. The U-beam aunts are coming, said his mother. Why? Asked Charlie. The U-beam aunts were Grandma Bone's 3 unmarried sisters. Charlie only saw them at Christmas, and he formed the idea that they were deeply disappointed in him. They always left a strange assortment of gifts: paint boxes, musical instruments, masks and cloaks, and even a chemistry set. Charlie had found none of these things the least bit useful. He liked football and TV, and that was about it. Grandma Bone leant across the table. Her eyes sparkled mysteriously. My sisters are coming to assess you, Charlie, and if it is found that you are worthy, that you are, as I suspect, endowed, then they will provide the necessary funds to send you to Bloor's Academy. Me? At Bloor's? Charlie said aghast. It's for geniuses. Don't worry, love. You won't pass the test, Macy said confidently. She got up muttering. Of course, it's old Macy who has to do all the preparation for Our Lady Mucks, isn't it? I don't know why I bother. There was to be a dinner for the aunts, Charlie's mother explained. The best silver, the finest crystal, and the treasured porcelain would be carried up from the cellar and laid in the chilly dining room, a room that was only ever used when the U-beam aunts came. Macy was defrosting chicken and fish and goodness knows what else as fast as she could. Charlie would have been worried if he hadn't been completely convinced that he wouldn't pass the aunt's test. He remembered how he tried to paint a picture for them and failed miserably, how he'd unsuccessfully attempted to play a violin, a flute, a harp, and a piano. He had put on the masks they provided: animals, clowns, pirates, cowboys, and a spaceman, but only managed to act the part of Charlie Bone. Finally, it had been admitted that he was not gifted. So as he waited for the great aunts to arrive, Charlie was not as fearful as he should have been. Benjamin, on the other hand, was extremely fearful. Charlie was his best friend, his only friend. Anything that happened to Charlie would indirectly happen to him. Sinister events were coming in on his friend. Benjamin sat at his bedroom window and watched Charlie's house. As darkness fell, the street lamps came on and the lights winked in the buildings behind the chestnut tree. In the basement, the attic, and all of the bedrooms. What was going on? The wind intensified. Thunder and lightning coincided. My bad. That meant that the storm was right above. Benjamin clung to Runner Bean, and the big dog hid his face in Benjamin's sleeve. The street was now deserted except for 3 shadowy figures. On they came, a line of black umbrellas hiding all but the hems of 3 dark coats, and 6 boots, 4 black and 2 red. In spite of the wind, there was a strange rhythm in their movements, almost as if a dance were taking place beneath those wide umbrellas. The figures stopped beside the chestnut tree, as Benjamin feared they would, and then mounted the steps to Charlie's house. For the first time in his life, Benjamin was glad to be himself and not Charlie Bone. At number 9, the dining table was laid, and damp logs smoldered in the grate. When the doorbell rang, Charlie was sent to answer it. The 3 great aunts swept into the house, stamping their feet on the tiled floor and shaking out their wet umbrellas. Their coats were hurled across the hall, landing on Charlie as if he were a coat stand. "Pick them up, boy," commanded Aunt Lucretia, as Charlie scrambled beneath the wet garments. "They're valuable moleskin, not rags." "Now don't be harsh, Aunt Eustacia. Charlie's got a secret to tell us, haven't you, pet?" Mumbled Charlie. "Don't be shy, Aunt Finita." The youngest came swaying up to him. "We want to know everything." "You, Beams, come in, Grandma Bone called. From the dining room, the 3 sisters sailed through the door, Lucretia the eldest, first. Venita, the youngest, last. Snatching glasses of sherry from Grandma Bone, they gathered around the dwindling fire, shaking their damp skirts and patting their abundant hair. Lucretia's white as snow, Eustacia's iron gray, and Venita's still black and folded round her head like raven wings. Charlie backed away and made for the kitchen, where Macy and his mother were busy round the stove. "Take the soup in, will you, Charlie?" said his mother. Charlie didn't want to be alone with the great aunts, but his mother looked hot and weary. So he did as she asked. The soup tureen was very heavy. Charlie could feel the glint of U-beam eyes following him around the long dining table. He plunked the tureen on a mat and ran to fetch the bowls before Grandma Bone could complain about the drop of soup that had spilled over. When everything was ready, Grandma Bone rang a bell, which Charlie thought was rather silly. Everyone could see that the meal was on the table. "Why do we need a bell?" he asked. "Tradition," snapped Grandma Bone, "and Peyton has no sense of smell." "But Uncle Peyton never eats with us." "Today," Grandma Bone said empathetically, "he will. And there's an end to it." "And then there's an end to it," said Macy with a grin, which soon faded when the 4 sisters glared at her. Uncle Peyton arrived, looking irritated, and the meal began. Macy had done her best, but 10 minutes was rather short notice to devise a meal of any distinction. The soup was salty, the chicken dry, and the truffle had a sad, drowned look. No one complained, however. They ate fast and heartily. Macy and Charlie's mother cleared the table. Peyton and Charlie helped. And then it was time for the assessment. Charlie discovered that his mother was not allowed to be present. I won't go in there without you, he said. I won't. Charlie, you must, said his mother. The U-beams hold the purse strings. I have nothing. It beats me why you want Charlie to go to that ridiculous academy, said Macy. For his father's sake, said Charlie's mother. Macy clicked her tongue and said nothing more. Charlie's father was dead, so why did it matter so much? His mother wouldn't tell him. She gave him a little push towards the dining room, and in he went. I want my mum in here, or I won't do it, said Charlie. My, a boy who wants his mother, Aunt Venetia cooled. A boy who wants his mother is a baby, said Aunt Lucretia sternly. Time to grow up, Charlie. This is a U-beam affair. We don't want distractions. At this point, Uncle Peyton tried to slip away, but his oldest sister called him back. Peyton, you're needed. Do your duty for once. Uncle Peyton reluctantly slid into the chair she indicated. Charlie was made to sit on one side of the table, facing the four sisters. Uncle Peyton sat at the end. Charlie wondered how the assessment would be conducted. There appeared to be no musical instruments, no masks or paintbrushes on the table. He waited. They watched. Where did he get that hair? Aunt Lucretia asked. His mother's side, said Grandma Bone. A Welshman. She spoke as if Charlie were not there. Ah, the three great sisters sighed disapprovingly. Aunt Lucretia was fumbling with a large leather bag, and at last she drew out a brown paper packet tied with black ribbon. She tugged the ribbon, and the packet fell open, revealing a pile of ancient-looking photographs. Grandma Bone pushed the packet over to Charlie, and the contents fanned out across the table. What am I supposed to do with these? Asked Charlie, who had a very good idea what they wanted him to do. The great aunt smiled encouragingly. Charlie prayed that nothing would happen, that he could just glance at the dusty-looking collection and look away before he heard voices. But one quick look told him that the people in the photographs were making such a great deal of noise. They were playing instruments, cellos, pianos, violins. They were dancing, singing, laughing. Charlie pretended not to hear. He tried to push them away from him towards Aunt Lucretia. She pushed them back. What do you hear, Charlie? Asked Grandma Bone. Nothing, said Charlie. Come on, Charlie. Try, said Aunt Venetia. And don't lie, said Aunt Eustacia. Or we'll make you cry, snarled Aunt Lucretia. That made Charlie angry. He wasn't going to cry for anyone. I don't hear nothing, he said, shoving the photographs away. Anything, said Aunt Lucretia, shoving them back. You don't hear nothing? You don't hear anything? Not nothing, grammar boy. Has no one taught you? He clearly needs to attend the academy, said Aunt Eustacia. Just look at them, Charlie. There's a pet, said Aunt Venetia sweetly. Just for 1 minute, and if nothing happens, we'll leave you in peace. And just, she waved her long white fingers, melt away. All right, said Charlie grudgingly. He thought he could get away with it. Just look at the photographs and block out the sounds. But it didn't work. The sounds of cellos, pianos, sopranos, and a great gust of laughter came bursting out at him, filling the room. The great aunts were talking to him. He could see their thin lips working away, but he couldn't hear their words above the dreadful clamor of photographs. At last, Charlie seized the pile and flung them face down on the table. The sudden silence was a wonderful relief. The great aunts stared at him, quietly triumphant. It was Aunt Venetia who spoke first. There. That wasn't so bad, was it, Charlie? Charlie realized he had been tricked. He'd have to watch out for Aunt Venetia in the future. She was obviously more cunning than her sisters. Who are all those people anyway? He said miserably. Your forebears, Charlie, said Aunt Lucretia. U-beam blood ran in all their veins, as it does in yours, dear clever boy. Her attitude had changed completely, but Aunt Lucretia was being nice was just as scary as Aunt Lucretia being nasty. You can go now, Charlie, said Grandma Bone. We have things to discuss, arrangements to make for your future. Charlie was only too glad to go. He leapt up and marched to the door, and as he went he caught sight of Uncle Peyton's face. He looked sad and far away, and Charlie wondered why he hadn't said a word the whole time he'd been there. Peyton gave Charlie a quick smile and then looked away. Charlie hurried to the kitchen where Macy and his mother were eagerly waiting for the results of his assessment. I think I passed, he told them glumly. Well, I'm blowed, said Macy. I thought you'd get away with it, Charlie. Was it the voices? Charlie nodded miserably. Those ruddy U-beams, she shook her head. Charlie's mother, however, was not so unhappy. The academy will be good for you, she said. No, it won't, said Charlie. I don't want to go. It's a stuffy old place for geniuses. I won't fit. It's halfway across the city, and I don't know anyone there. Suppose I refuse to go, Mum. If you refuse, all of this could disappear, said his mother, waving in the general direction of the kitchen cupboards. Charlie was astounded. Were his great-aunt's witches, then, making houses disappear at the touch of a wand, or maybe an umbrella? Do you mean the house could disappear, he said. Not exactly, said his mother, but our lives would change. Macy and I have nothing, not a bean. When your father Lyle died, we were at the mercy of the U-beams. They provided for everything. They bought the house, they paid the bills. I'm sorry, Charlie. You'll have to go to Bloor's if that's what they want. Charlie felt very tired. Okay, he said. And now I'm going to bed. He had forgotten about the orange envelope, but when he got to his bedroom, there it was on his pillow. His mother must have rescued it from the piles of food and crockery on the kitchen table. Charlie decided not to take a second look at the man and his baby. He would take the photo straight back to Quick Photo tomorrow and maybe get Runner Bean in exchange. When his mother came up to say goodnight, Charlie made her sit on his bed and answer a few questions. He felt he deserved to know more about himself before he set foot in Bloor's. First, I want to know what really happened to my father, Charlie said. Tell me again. I've told you so many times already, Charlie. It was foggy, he was tired, he drove off the road and the car plunged into a quarry. It was 100 meters deep. And why aren't there any photos of him around? Not one? A shadow passed across his mother's face. There were, she said, but one day, when I was out, they all disappeared. Even the tiny pictures in my locket. Charlie had never heard about this. Why? He asked. At last his mother told him the truth about the U-beam family, how horrified they'd been when Lyle fell in love with her, Amy Jones, an ordinary girl with no exceptional talents. In a word, unendowed. The U-beams forbade their marriage. Their laws were ancient and strong. The women could marry whomever they chose, but every male with U-beam blood must marry an endowed girl. Lyle broke the rules, and he and Amy Jones eloped to Mexico. We had a wonderful honeymoon, sighed Charlie's mother, but when we came home, I knew that Lyle was worried. He hadn't escaped them after all. He was always looking over his shoulders, running from shadows, and then one foggy night when you were 2 years old, he got a phone call. A summons, really. Grandma Bone was ill and he must go to her immediately, so he got in his car and drove into a quarry. She gazed into the distance for a moment and murmured, "He wasn't himself that day. Something had happened. It was almost as if he were under a spell." She wiped away a very small tear. "I don't think Grandma Bone has an ounce of love in her," she said. "As far as the U-beams were concerned, when Lyle died, it was just an end of an unfortunate episode. But they were interested in you, Charlie. Suppose you turned out to be endowed. They realized they would have to take care of you until they found out. So they gave me a house and let Macy move in, and then Grandma Bone arrived to watch us. Uncle Peyton came shortly after that because, well, I suppose he didn't have anywhere else to go. I was grateful for everything until the photos vanished. It was something I just couldn't understand. Grandma Bone had denied having touched them, of course." Charlie listened to his mother's story and put two and two together. "I know why the photos vanished," he murmured. "Grandma Bone didn't want me to hear what my father had to say." "But, Charlie, you were only 2, said his mother. "She didn't know that you would have this funny gift for hearing voices." "She guessed," said Charlie. "It's probably in the family." His serious face made his mother smile. She kissed him goodnight and told him not to worry about the U-beams. "And don't worry about Bloor's Academy either," she said. "After all, your father went there." "And did he have a talent?" asked Charlie. "Oh, yes," said his mother from the door. "But not your sort of talent, Charlie. He wasn't endowed. He was a musician." When she had gone, Charlie couldn't sleep. He had too much on his mind. It was unsettling to think he was part of such a peculiar family. He wanted to know more, much more, but where to begin? Perhaps Uncle Payne could provide a few answers. He didn't seem as heartless as his sisters. The storm blew itself out, the rain stopped, the wind died, and the cathedral clock struck midnight. On the 12th stroke, Charlie felt a sudden, strange breathlessness. Something was happening to him. It was as if he were passing through a moment when he might have lived or died. He thought of Lyle, the father he never could remember. The moment passed, and Charlie found himself wide awake and restless. A few minutes later, he heard Uncle Peyton creak downstairs and go to the kitchen for a snack. Charlie had grown used to his uncle's nighttime ramble. It always woke him up. Usually he would just turn over and go back to sleep. Tonight, he jumped out of bed and got dressed. When his uncle left the house, Charlie crept downstairs and followed him. He'd often wanted to do this, but he never had the courage. Tonight was different. He felt confident and determined. Uncle Peyton moved fast, but by the time Charlie had closed the front door very softly behind him, his uncle was about to turn a corner. Keeping close to the houses, Charlie ran to the end of the street. Peyton paused and looked back. Charlie shrank into the shadows. The street they had turned into was lit by small bell-shaped lamps that cast a soft glow on the wet paving stones. Here, the trees grew closer. The walls were higher. It was a quiet and mysterious place. Peyton U-beam was on the move again, but now his purposeful stride had become an aimless stroll. Soon Charlie, hopping from tree to tree, found himself only a few paces behind his uncle. A chill wind cuffed Charlie's ears, and he began to wonder if his midnight stalking was going to come to anything. Uncle Peyton hadn't turned into a vampire or a werewolf after all. Perhaps he just felt happier in the dark. Charlie was about to turn and creep back home when his uncle suddenly stopped. He was standing about a meter away from a lamppost, and a strange sort of humming came from him. Not humming, exactly, because Charlie couldn't actually hear it. It was more like a feeling of humming, as though the air around his uncle was charged with soundless music. The light in the lamp grew brighter, so bright that Charlie could hardly look at it. And then, with a little crack, the glass shattered, and shining fragments fell to the pavement. Charlie gave a low gasp, rubbed his eyes. Perhaps it was just coincidence. His uncle standing there while a power surge made the light in the lamp too hot for the glass. Peyton moved on, and Charlie followed, still hiding behind the trees. His uncle slowed down as he drew level with another lamppost, but this time, although the light became fierce and bright, Uncle Peyton walked past before the glass could shatter. And then, without looking back, he said, "Why are you following me?" And that is the end of chapter 2. Thank you guys for listening as always, and you can wait a little while. I don't know, I don't work tonight, so you may hear some more chapters later tonight. And you can follow me on Twitter. I will put the link in the description. As always, thanks for listening. Like and subscribe if you want to hear more. See you next time.